Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of Teamwork a Better Way. I'm Christian Napier, your host, and I am joined by the well-traveled and even better dressed Spencer Horn. Spencer, how you doing?
Good. I'm glad you're back. I missed you on Monday.
I'm glad you're back. I mean, we've got a lot to catch up on because you have been all over the place, including the other side of the world. So why don't you tell us about your travels recently?
Well, yeah. Last week I was in Doha, Qatar, working with a client, and it was fabulous. And coming home was interesting with all the tension that's going on over there. A lot of the company I work with actually is struggling to recruit people because they're concerned about the geopolitical tension in the area, of course. And so, as our plane took off, we flew right over Tehran, right up over just to the east of Moscow, straight up over Russia, right over the top of the North Pole, down to Seattle. I never took that route. I was just watching the map the entire way, and I'm like, this is great. I wish I could actually be on the ground in places like Tehran and Moscow, but hopefully soon the
I
tension will
hope
end
so.
and we'll be
Once
able to do that.
I agree. I hope that we can find peace and be able to visit these beautiful places.
Such
I
great
worked
place.
with a Yeah, I worked with a gentleman, Australian, who spent time in Iran, and just he was so effusive in his praise there of the people, the culture, the food. I mean, it was outstanding.
Yeah.
And I have to say, when we're talking about people, culture, and food, we need to introduce our next guest, who's joining us from
Absolutely.
Madrid,
Right.
which Spain is one of the world's best places for people, culture, and food. So, Spencer, I turn it over to you to do the honors.
Absolutely. So today we have with us Christoffel Sneijders, and he is a master certified coach. He's a renowned expert in human behavior and transformative change, which is something we share in the space. But he's got over 30 years of experience empowering individuals and organizations to unlock their true potential. He's a creator of this is what we're excited to learn about today, this groundbreaking three brains intelligence theory, which integrates the head, heart, and the gut, which gut brains to foster better decision making, deeper relationships, and sustainable leadership. And this expertise that you have, Christopher, I'm so excited for you to share. But it includes psychotherapy, clinical hypnotherapy, somatic and energy therapy, NLP, coaching, which really I imagine allows you to do so much more than just regular coaching and working with people worldwide. We were talking before. You're teaching at the Georgetown University there in Qatar. Your expertise is sought all around the world. You're the founder of the Three Brains Intelligence Academy, and you actually deliver internationally accredited coaching certifications and therapy and leadership training programs that are just really helping your clients create transformation for their clients. And you've trained and impacted over 12,000 people in 33 countries. Man, I'm a little bit behind you. I'm only at 26, but working with clients such as Woodside, Technip, Subsea 7, Islamic Development Bank, and Inspire. And it looks like, I mean, you're working all over Europe, Middle East, Asia, Australia, and you're the author for our listeners of relationships. Which brain is talking? How men and women fit. That's a pretty hot topic, I imagine, right?
Yes.
And so, welcome, Christoffel. So glad to have you.
So I'm extremely honored to be here because I followed you guys, your podcast, and I know you have deep discussions, a lot of knowledge to bring, a lot of experience to bring. So it feels always honored to be with people who also know the world and have traveled the world, and not only say from one side, but also from the other side, and not only from the outside and the glamour, but also from the inside. How does it feel? So
Well,
I'm really happy to be here.
We're so happy you're here. We love we love a worldwide perspective. We never want to be parochial in our because our audience is worldwide, and everything we do everywhere impacts everyone else, even if we don't always are not always aware of those impacts. But In leadership, for the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years, emotional intelligence has been really the thing that leadership focused on. But you believe that's no longer enough. Is that right?
No, yeah, absolutely. I put on my glasses, so sometimes because I think you both have glasses, let's also put on my glasses.
Well, we're going to highlight you when you talk. So yeah, tell us what you think about why it's no longer enough.
Oh, hey, guys, I don't
Spencer
hear you
cut
anymore.
off there at the end. So go ahead.
I said, yeah, tell us why that's no longer enough. We're going to highlight you as you talk. We'll put you up by yourself.
Okay. It is very easy. How many times did you not say to yourself, Spencer or Christian, I like to change, but I don't feel like it today. My heart is not in it. My gut is not in it. It doesn't make sense. We all know those sentences. And what neuroscience actually came aware of already 30, 40 years ago, we have actually a real brain in our gut. That's now popular about the gut bacteria, but really, there's 500 million brain cells. And the heart, they came aware, have 100,000 brain cells. And they can remember, they can make independent decisions. And what also actually is the case, they have different kind of strategies / objectives. And for everybody who thinks, yeah, it sounds nice, there's one little test you can do and come aware, I'm always right. Just imagine, in the morning you make a shopping list for yourself, what you're going to eat. And you like to be healthy, so you write down all the healthy stuff, from carrots to salads to other kind of things. You're not allowed to have breakfast. You're not allowed to have snacks. You're not allowed to have lunch. And just before dinner, when you're really hungry, you go to the shopping mall to do your shopping. What's the chance you buy what's on that list? And what is the chance you buy extra stuff that you just find on that moment yummy? Up to now, I never met somebody who says, I will keep myself to the list. And why is that? Because in that moment, actually, you're hungry. It overrides your logical brain. And where it's coming from, your gut brain is actually saying, I'm now in a shortage of energy. I need something for direct energy. And I don't care what you wrote down on your list. And if it's healthy or not, I need it now. And you see even a lot of people who do this test actually in the shop already taking a little snack and almost opening before the counter. So, and if you transform that idea to leadership, what we love, it makes so much sense that a lot of leaders actually do it already without knowing it. The President of America always says, I follow my gut feeling. Other leaders say, no, we really have to make all the boxes tick before we make a decision. And Stephen Brandon from Virgin says, actually, I follow my heart and my passion. You hear already 3 different kind of leaders who actually think about and work about different kind of actions. Now, from that perspective, it means you have to do something else. Knowing that there are real 3 brains, it means if we know it, we know how to train it or retrain it, we can actually have much more rounded leadership.
I just want to make sure.
I had any brains. I thought I had no brains. Now you're telling me I have 3 brains?
I want to make sure I heard you. Did you say we have brain cells in our heart and in our gut?
Yes, I cannot do.
Christian, did you know that we actually have brain cells?
No clue. Yeah, I think a disproportionate amount of my brain cells are in my gut. I'll just tell you.
Well, I hope they're not in another part of my body that,
Okay. Now, so a neurobiologist, a cardiologist, André Amour, who in the beginning of the 90s did all his research and came aware, hey, I see something outside the heart. What is that? And when he got the equipment to measure it, he came aware there are really brain cells like we have here. So neurons with dendrites, axons, connected with each other, gray matter, white matter, glia. And he called it the little brain on the heart. It's only 100,000 brain cells, but their objective is less. Because, guys, when you feel love, where do you feel it?
We say in our heart. I mean, I feel it in my heart, yeah.
You feel it in your heart. Why do you feel it in your heart? Because oxytocin, you know what oxytocin is? The neurotransmitter.
Yes. That's the feeling of love and connection. It's the hormone that helps us to. Women, when they give birth, it washes over them, and the connection they have with that baby is so strong.
Beautifully said. Where's it produced?
I imagine in the brain, but you're
Yes,
telling,
and
yeah.
brains plural. It is also synthesized at the valves of the heart. The heart can synthesize, hence produce and release oxytocin.
So I am so excited to talk about this, Christoffel, because I mean I have you talk so much about harmony between these three
Yeah,
brains, and
yeah,
we'll get to that. But Christian, and you know where I'm going. In our upbringing, we've talked about the connection of head and heart, and the powerful combination that makes. Now we're hearing that we had the combination of head and heart
mm,
and gut, and I'm just so curious what happens. Well, let's talk about the pain first, okay?
yeah.
What happens to a leader when their head, heart, and gut are not aligned?
In three different things. Let's one step back. The objective or the strategy of the gut is where's our immune system in our gut? It's all about survival. When you look at the most primitive organisms on this world, and even now, if you would go into the sea and look at the sea cucumber, it's actually a digestive system. It does not have a heart, does not have a head, but it can survive, it can reproduce, it can find food, it can fight off its enemies. Your gut is only for survival. That means I win or I lose. I eat or I don't eat. That's actually the whole function of your gut and how it makes decisions. When we are born, we're totally helpless. We're like a joey, the little kangaroos in Australia. So if our caregivers, our parents don't take care of us, we die. Hence, bonding is our biggest survival need as human beings. Hence, we have a heart, and that's for most mammals in this world. So the heart is all about connection. The head is all about logic. The only part that knows tomorrow and yesterday is the head. And if you think, how do you mean? Now, ask your dog or ask a kid of 3 years old, and say to it, next week we're going to the zoo or to the. They're already having the shoes on because they don't know the concept of time. Only your head knows concept of time after you're 7 years old or young. Now, bringing back to leaders, what happens if it's not aligned? If they only follow their head, it becomes almost like an Excel sheet robot leader. And I think there is a company and it's really famous, and we look at it, and it was former called Twitter, I think, and you look at that leader is extremely logical in all his decisions. Not only, but it means he makes decisions almost like on an Excel sheet. Pro, con, needed, don't need it, puff, 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 in, out. Based on his success, I'm not going to argue it's not useful. But if you don't use it, you can see what happens when he bought it. He releases people from their job just by a tweet. So there is no heart in his decisions. So people who work for him don't do it from their passion for the leadership. They don't follow him based on passion. So there's a lack of, when there's a lack of heart, you don't follow people for the passion. When there's a lack of gut, if there's a lack of gut, it means they don't dare to make the risky decisions. They don't bite the bullet. Now, when your gut is in there, it's about, I need to win, otherwise I don't eat. So it means sometimes a bold decision has to be taken, although you don't know for sure the outcome will be
bold
successful.
Decision to buy the candy bar in that moment. But so let me back up. So I have a client that brought me in, a really challenging manager that they had. Same thing, very head oriented, but he was all about getting stuff done. But he was receiving feedback that HR complaints from his people that he was a bully, and all of his peers wanted him fired because he's like, he never took the time to connect. You talk about connection from the heart. It was all about the head. Yeah, but I'm good at getting things done. And he was for 17, 18 years. But as they promoted him, the challenges throughout the organization were just exacerbated, because you can have this high productive but low positive, low relationship culture, and you cannot sustain that. That's when people, as you said, no passion, then they start leaving the organization because there's no connection to, it's interesting, not only the mission, but to the people they work with. Because as you know, people stay because of people. They leave because of people as well. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Kijk, and as I now head heart gut leadership, our beautiful head most times is the advisory board of the heart and the gut. So when the heart feels sad or feels passionate, it starts thinking strategies to achieve it. When the gut is, say, anxious or likes to win, it also asks the head to give me strategies to achieve it. So you see most times combination, the head is active. When you describe your leader, pitifully there are too many of those, in my opinion. They're getting success and they're smart, so they know how to get their ways done. Short-term 3 monthly success is there. Long-term success, you would say, if you look at their retention
Not
rate of the
sustainable.
people, is high. It's not sustainable. So
Right.
if they don't leave in 3 years, they have an issue. Those leaders you see a lot of times jump within 3 years. Otherwise, they get bitten in the back by all their damage they do.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And the funny part is why it's so important to know. When you know what they do, your 3 brains, it's for a lot of leaders annoying to talk to me. Do you know why? And okay, just imagine, I say to a leader, you have 2 legs. Would it make sense to walk on one? They look at me from, do I pay you a shitload of money for this, Chris, for this stupid question? Of course not. I said, great. You have 3 brains, you only use 2. How smart is that?
Can I
And in
ask a
that moment, they
question
get silent, they look at me and think, I don't like you anymore, Chris.
Christoffel, I'm curious. Not, we're talking a lot about leaders here, and we'll continue focusing on that. But I'm curious. The population in general, is it more the norm that people have 1 or 2 brains that are dominant, or how exceptional is it for people to find a real balance between these 3 systems? Because it seems to me that perhaps having that balance may be more the exception than the rule, but I don't know for sure. So I'm curious, in the work that you've done, the research that you've done, when we look at the population as a whole, generally speaking, how many of us are in balance and how many of us are out of balance and we need to do some work?
It's a great question. So I have a test on my website where there's a short test to test what's your 3 brains dominance. And I test there, say, the system 1 of Daniel Kahneman, thinking fast and slow. How do you make decisions when you don't wait 5 or 10 minutes? And from that, I have now 4,500 people tested, from leaders to coaches to students and everything in between. And I have to say, what you see the most is that there's a 2 brain, say, dominance. 2 brains are more dominant, and 1 is, say, lagging behind. 3 brains that are, say, somewhere balanced out is less than 5 or 10%. And of course, people say, I should get 3 brains balanced. It makes most sense because they are much more flexible in jumping into what we called already 30 years ago, situational leadership. I think we all know this word, situational leadership. I think we all got used to that in the 60s or 70s. Then you talk task or relationship oriented. That means you have to jump between the task and the relationship. That means you need to jump between the gut and the heart, and also logical making the decisions. It means you have to be really flexible in your 3 brains. When only 10% really has that balanced scores, it means they jump in between without thinking of it. I have actually 2 brain dominance to be true. I have a heart and gut brain dominance in my system 1 thinking. So I have to pause down to let the logic come in. So I can be extremely quick in my responding, extremely quick in my decision making. And I find myself a lot of times thinking, I should have thought about it before I jumped. I should have asked, where's actually the parachute, guys? And so...
Are you saying you jump without parachute? You jump without the parachute?
Just like Spencer pushing the button without any warning.
but Christoffel, you've got this. I find that in my experience, the gut is actually, I mean, sometimes it's no less accurate, or what I call intuition, than the law, than the fact brain. I mean, there's because so much of our experiences are recorded in our brains, our guts, right? I mean, our body records our past experiences. And so in my experience, I find is that those who rely on that intuition, that gut, make decisions faster. But it's not necessarily less accurate than those that slow down and take the time to think about it. Is that your experience, or is that just?
It is true. There's research done, especially when say also in high impact kind of jobs like firefighters or policemen. They
Right.
don't think 2 minutes. Is this safe or not safe where I'm standing now with my hose and the fire? Because they will burn to ashes. So their experience is really internalized in them, and
It's
based on
recorded internally. Yep.
what they sensed. So it's not only what they hear, smell, but exactly what the energy system says to them. They make decisions. If you like to make a cause and effect decision, so what does it mean for me next week? Then you need this one here. Like if I'm going to the shopping mall and I'm hungry, then getting the snack will not kill me right away. But if I do that every day, there will be, say, a change in my body shape.
Right.
Because the heart and the gut don't think about what's the consequence next week. It thinks what's the consequence now. So your heart decisions or gut decisions can be amazing when the decision has to have a decision made now and the consequences now. When the consequences next week, the heart is not always the best in making that decision because it does
love
not
that.
have the prediction for next week.
I love that.
So that's so if you bring it back to leadership, that's why we need those three systems, because you cannot only rely on what's good now.
Right.
Sometimes you also have to rely what is good next week or next month. What's the impact of my decision now? Because we all know when you really have to make a decision in businesses, what is now urgent. There's a call that's happening. Okay, we now have to make a decision, left or right. Are we going to buy, not buy? Hey, we're in a negotiation. Are we going to do it or not do it? Then you cannot say, okay, let's wait 3 months to make the decision yes or no. If you're in a sales position, you cannot wait 3 months to make a decision, do I give a discount or not? Then you have to rely on other kind of parts of your brains, your intuition, what you say.
Yeah. My mentor, Kelvin Christian, remember him? He called this anticipatory management. And when I work with teams, we call this proactive, the ability to be proactive as a productivity measure. We actually measure, is the system, which is interesting. We're actually talking about an individual system. I work with team systems as well. Is the system, who are made up of individual leaders, being proactive? How is the system aligned? This is so fascinating to me. So the question I have is, you are saying, and you actually have the same number that I say, only 10% of teams are high performing. And you've talked about the fact that in your research, only about 10% of leaders have their three brains aligned. Is there a correlation?
I did not research that, so it's not based on research, but I would say right away yes. Because if you look at most team
because you're using your gut like I would.
It's gut, but also say all my experience and all the things I've seen. If you look, say, at how teams are organized, and I think we all three know that, they're not organized based on what makes the most balanced team. If you look at sports, I love sports. We have strikers, we have defenders, we have midfielders, we have a goalie, and they're really trained and selected for that job. When you look at teams, people are promoted for what kind of reasons? Tell me what kind of objective reasons people are promoted.
Usually good individual performance.
Yes, but not they're checked on what they did in the past, not what they will deliver in the future.
Right.
I'm almost started stuttering about it.
I just had this conversation with the CEO yesterday, Chris. He's like, I have a problem. We promoted the people who did the best yesterday, and they're not doing great leading the people of tomorrow.
You, as Meatloaf said, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Right.
And we're not going around. But you're so right. So if you look, say, in companies, they select the people from yesterday for tomorrow. So you have you have weak performing teams because they're not. And if you then have a team, like there was a book written from good to great, and they say first select the people, and then select how you put them in the bus. And nowadays we don't look at that anymore.
No,
And
we're
then you
spending
start
too
thinking,
much on strengths. We're
yeah,
looking at strengths, and then, oh my gosh, I never hear anybody else say that. So you're the first person I've heard that is saying that. I love that.
yeah.
Christian,
So
sorry,
it
I'm
makes
sorry,
sense.
I'm grandstanding here. Christian's
Sorry,
fast.
Christian, that we put you out of the talk.
No, no, no. I love listening to this conversation. It really makes me think deeply. And one of the questions that's come up in my mind as we're talking here is, uh, okay, we understand that a very large majority of us have dominant brains, maybe 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3. So they're not necessarily in complete alignment. Uh, and I'm curious if the strategy then is one to acknowledge to basically diagnose and acknowledge, okay,
Yeah.
this is these are my dominant brains. But is it possible to actually raise the level of the submissive brain, for lack of a better term? It's probably not right.
I love your
To
word
match
submissive
it,
brain.
or will they always be dominant and submissive, and I just have like strategies to cope with that? I mean, it sounds to me from your like firefighter example, I'm curious if the firefighter is more innately wired for a more dominant gut brain, or if that actually changes through training. Like somebody wants to be a firefighter and they actually are more logical, but then through all of their training experience they become more intuitive and can rely on their gut. I don't know if that question makes any sense to you,
Yeah, but
Chris.
no, it is an amazing sentence actually. Yeah? And to split it up, yes, we can change. Why is that? Because we have brain plasticity. That's already taught a long time ago. Our brain can actually change and grow. They did that research with the taxi drivers in London in the old days before we had, say, Google Maps and Waze and other kind of things. And they came aware where your part in the brain where you really have
Hippocampus.
the yeah, the hippocampus, and they showed it grows based on remembering all the streets of London. Now, your three brains can be trained just like a muscle. What fires together, wires together. Law of Hebb. So we can do it. And what we also know, when you have a talent and when you like something and you love it, you train it more. Arnold Schwarzenegger was not born as Mr. Universe in his days. He trained 8 hours a day for that. So if you train, you can change it. Knowing when I did my first test by myself and I thought I was beautifully aligned, I was amazing, saw the score back and now we're sitting for my own mirror. Maybe I should change the test so I can have a better score. Of course, that is not.
Right.
And that is actually gut brain response. So the gut brain likes to win. So if he doesn't win, then okay, how can we cheat? So no. Chris, learn from this. So what I decided, I still love my spontaneity, but also when I make decisions that I say a little bit more have a little bit more consequence, I train actually this one upstairs. I pause and let actually really consciously I go upstairs and say, okay, what does now make sense? Say I'm thinking about this tomorrow or next week. Would I still do the chair? What is the consequence of it? Would I still make this decision? So I'm training this one to step in. I monitored myself over the years and I see a change. I'm actually getting more aligned. I'm still not aligned, but I'm getting more there. I think, oh wow, it's working. So like little child, I'm happy. Okay, it's working. So we can do that. But of course, if you're working as a firefighter 8 hours a day as a firefighter, week in, week out, which brains are you training? Not your logical pause brain when you're in a fire. And so you can change it. And you can see it also in students. And when they enter a study and when they finish a study, there's a change in the brains based on what they study and how they have to be more and more conscious of more and more spontaneous of more and more whatevers. And so, yes, we can change it. And what you say, the first thing that is so great, you said it, we have to diagnose and analyze and create an awareness. Where are we actually? And then not like me, the first response, okay, how can I achieve this? But really take the consequences. How can I train myself? But then, of course,
So, sorry to cut you, but
keep going.
Yeah. So you talk about training yourself. You actually said the brain is a muscle, so you're creating a muscle memory, just like in sports. When you are training an action that you have to repeat, you can train that. I actually do an exercise, Christoffel, where I have people sign their name. Just sign your name. Now sign it with your non-dominant hand, and they're like, "Oh, it's so hard." And I go, "Okay, could you do it?" And they say, "Yes." I said, "If you practiced with your non-dominant hand, would you get better? Would it get easier? Would it be less? Would it take less focus?" And of course, the answer is yes. Now, it will never be as good as maybe your dominant hand, but you can create that muscle memory. And I worked with the military here in the United States, and you know what you were talking about earlier. They find the best people, and then they force them into a system. And they may have a personality that is supportive and collaborative, but then they force them into this type of profile, and they create muscle memory for this new system that they want them to behave as in the military. And they practice, and they have a system to develop that. So I love that you're reinforcing that that's possible.
And it is possible. But just imagine, I live in Spain, and when I came to Spain, my Spanish was nada, as they say in Spain. But how do you learn? You learn, you learn a word, and the first time you hear that word, it just drops out. And how do we learn it? By repetition. Okay, right. Nada means nothing, nada means nothing, nada means nothing. And in one moment, what you do is actually training, firing, and what fires together, wires together. Now, that happens here with learning words, but it also happens, say, in decision making. It also happens between the three brains, because what we did not tell, and it is now known and not known, and the cranial 10 nerve, that's a cranial nerve here, we have 12 in our head. The cranial 10 is unique. It's also called the dorsal vagal nerve, the ventral vagal nerve, that goes from your cranial to your throat, to your lungs, to your heart, through your abdomen, into your intestine. And it's actually the pathway between the three brains, because they actually are connecting with all of them. And also to your throat, so to your larynx muscles here. So it's actually the connector. And they came aware that by activating it, by working on it, that you communicate. And the beauty is of that nerve, 90% of the nerve cells or the communication goes up. They call it afferent nerves, and only 10% go down. Based on that conclusion, it also makes sense that you're in the world of talking and leadership. What happens when somebody gets nervous with their voice? It changes.
Yeah, gets higher pitch.
Do they want that they change their voice? No. But the gut is from communicating, or the heart is communicating from up, from, hey, I feel nervous now, this could cost my career, gut, fear, or my heart, or maybe I get rejected, they don't like me anymore. And based on that communication upwards, it goes through the throat, the larynx nerve, so it changes actually your voice, and it comes into your head, and then we make sense of it. So even in our voice, we can come aware, hey, what's happening actually with the person? Which brain on this moment is talking?
I just want to marinate with
we can train
with
that.
the ramifications of this, because it's pretty profound. One of the questions that I've got for you, Christoffel, as we're kind of surfing through all of this knowledge, is you mentioned, okay, Arnold Schwarzenegger, with that analogy, or a high performing athlete, and they train for hours and hours a day, and I'm wondering, we might say, well, at work you don't have the opportunity to do that, but if you look at the firefighter occupation, that's what they're doing. By doing the work, they're actually
Yeah.
training their things.
Yeah.
Military the same.
The military
Yeah.
the same. So I'm curious, like from a knowledge worker perspective, for example, we give people different roles and responsibilities and so on and so forth. How do we optimize the tasks that we give people so that they are actually working these muscles that they should be working? It makes me think like, okay, like you mentioned, we typically organize our day around tasks, and I need to do this, that, and the other. And that could be logical brain thinking. I've got my tasks organized, so on and so forth. But I'm curious, how do we ensure that we are injecting the right kinds of activities in our everyday work schedule to optimize this entire system so that it all works together, instead of emphasizing one thing or another? What kind of insights do you have over the decades of work that you've done with leaders and organizations?
You have amazing questions. Let's start with that.
Always, Christian always have. That's why I can't do the show without him, because he's a smart. Because he's got the brain.
But just imagine, when you talk about firefighters or you talk about the military, they get constant feedback on what they're doing. There's a constant feedback loop. Now, you work with leaders. How much time in the week do they take to reflect on what they did and sit down and say, I just had a meeting with ABC, and the objective was task, was relationship, was action. What did I really do? How did I step into that? What did I do good? What could I improve? How much time weekly do they take for that?
Retrospective.
0. Because they don't see it as work. They see it as a waste of time. Yeah. And because there is nobody next to them who gives them right away feedback. And if you talk to an employee, the employee is not saying, hey, Christian, we just had a talk about how you motivate me, but actually I don't feel motivated now. The employee is not going to tell it to you, Christian, because he knows that's a bad career move. So he keeps his mouth shut. So the feedback loop for managers and leaders is almost not. And they don't do the reflection. So they're just walking with their eyes closed, tunneling through, getting promoted based on the work they did yesterday for tomorrow, what you just said. So if you like to bring it in, and the leaders I coach or work with who are the most successful have an automatic reflection mode. So after a meeting, they have something like, hey, what happened there? What did I do good? What should I do better? And it's not they sit down for it, but almost when they walk to the coffee machine or something else, it's almost like an instant feedback loop. And when I talk to them and say, yeah, Chris, but isn't that normal? I said, no, for you it's normal. Ask 5 of your employees or your colleagues, even in the same level, if they do this. And they come back the next time and said, Chris, almost nobody does it.
This is so important. We need to emphasize this for our listeners, because most leaders, as you pointed out, are interested in productivity, efficiency. The focus is efficiency. And so if you look at what we call the Eisenhower matrix, right? The 4 quadrants of time management. We're mostly in quadrant 1, which is urgent and important. Basically, we're firefighting, which leads to burnout, which I want you to talk about, right? That leads to we're burned out. Where you're suggesting in the retrospective is quadrant 2, which is important but not urgent. And so we sacrifice so often training. We so often sacrifice the retrospective, the time that we need to say, how did I do, to self-evaluate, because we believe, many leaders believe, that's not being productive. Yeah. But we have a saying here in the United States, go slow to go fast. And what I'm hearing you say, Christoffel, is when you slow down, you're actually more productive, which seems so counterintuitive. So can you frame this argument in because so many leaders are experiencing burnout, which means their capability to be efficient and productive is not sustainable, which is what we're talking about. So how can we prevent from, I guess the question is, how do high achievers burn out even when they seem already emotionally intelligent? And how can they prevent that?
The research I did, let's say the research I did, besides my own gut feeling, heart feeling, people get burned out when they actually have a higher score in the heart brain. So they feel committed to their job, to their task, to the company, to the people. So they run more than actually only is in their own task. I was working with somebody who said, Chris, I cannot leave my team behind. And those people burn out. The people who say, it's about me, they don't burn out. Look at people who burn out. They always have a social capacity in them. They have an emotional intelligence. People who say are really gut brain, head brain driven almost never burn out because gut brain takes care of yourself. That's your immune system. I was just talking today to my son. He has two little kids from 3 years old and 1 year old. One has, say, belly flu. So he said, I did not sleep this week so good. He looked really horrible, I have to say.
Haggard.
And if you so this is a heart brain person. But this is in personal life what a lot of people do in business life. They sacrifice themselves for the bigger good. That's when you get a burnout. If you don't sacrifice for your bigger good, then you don't get a burnout. Then you say, it's not my task. Those are the people who say to people, team, Christmas is not happening this year. We have to work on. We have to go on. Doesn't ask the question, gives the command. Because he doesn't care or she doesn't care. The team there will get burned out because they like to be at Christmas at home and have their Christmas turkey and all this kind of stuff. So burnout is, and Gabor Mate wrote a beautiful book about it already 20, 30 years ago, when the body says no. And in his research shows all the people who care too much, sometimes from a traumatic event in the past, they get, say, sick. If you don't care, it's a bold statement, you almost don't get sick in that part. Because your gut brain takes over and says, where's your immune system located? In your gut brain. So if your gut brain is taking action and makes a decision, it takes care of yourself.
We have a saying in the United States. It's called compassion fatigue.
Yes. So you can almost, when you walk through a company and when I do the test in people, when I work in a company and I let them do the short test, then and I see, say, the scores, and I see the high heart brain scores, and I ask in the team, I said, only the high heart brain scores. How many of you had somewhere the feeling that they are running through burnout? And 80% of the heart brain dominant raised their hand. Yeah. Gut brain dominant said, how many of you? And they look and they say, no, we can deal with it. There's no issue. And they always say, I can take care of myself. And that makes a huge difference. And I say, hey, dear heart brain people, do you hear this? Yeah. How much can you take care of yourself? And they also, but we cannot leave the team behind. It's teamwork. Teamwork, a better way.
Makes sense, Christian, doesn't it?
It does. Okay, I've got one more question for you before we get to Spencer's lightning round. So I heard you say that as leaders, oftentimes we don't pause to reflect and ask ourselves questions. Probably we're not getting a lot of feedback from other people aside from the mandated quarterly and annually performance review processes that HR is telling us that we need to do. And so I'm curious about some pragmatic things, a practical thing that people can do now. One thing that came to my mind, I'm seeing this more in my own work, where if there's an hour meeting, they schedule the meeting for 50 minutes. And that leaves 10 minutes either for task switching or for some reflection, right? So I was thinking just, as a leader, what I could do is make sure that I build in points in my day for focus time, make sure that I am, and I'm not good at this. This is something that I'm thinking, I need to do this to be better, is instead of scheduling meetings, back to back, which is what I have now, sometimes overlapping meetings, make sure that my meetings I leave time in between there, so I have some time for reflection. I'm just curious. That's a long way to ask a question. What's one or two practical tips that you could give people, as a leave behind right now, who are listening or watching this podcast?
Now, one what you said is gold. Huh? When you schedule for 1 hour, you have 50 minutes meeting actually. That reflection time is needed, and that is before the meeting. And then there's the second thing: when you go into a meeting with somebody, then start thinking, okay, what's the objective of this meeting? Yeah, we can still be efficiency and effective. What's the task of this meeting? Should we go for task? Situational leadership. Should we go for the task, the relationship? Should we go to a strategic thought process it? And from there, start thinking, okay, then which of my 3 brains should actually be active? All 3 of them, you probably yes. Okay, which one is the one that probably will fall out of the bandwagon when we step into action? Okay, so let's focus on that one to bring it in at least. So I ask already up front, what would my head say about the talk ahead with you guys? I really program my head. What would my head say to this? Instead of being totally enthusiastic and go with the flow. Other people would say, okay, I like to connect with them. What would my heart say? If I would follow my heart, what would I do in this session? Others would say, hey, if I just would follow my gut, what would I do in this session? So preempt yourself, what will I do if I would follow my head, my heart, or my gut? When you then go into the meeting, at least you already are prepared, because preparation is 90% of success. Know yourself, know the enemy. Lao Tzu already wrote a book about that 3,000 years ago.
The Art of War.
The Art of War. So it's nothing new, I say, but it is actually take the time. And there is research done, also in the military, about the most successful, leaders in the military. So their task was you had to conquer a hill, and they became aware that the people who came up there on the hill and then took the time to reflect, okay, we're now up the hill, what should we do? How should we monitor everything? How can we make it happen, etc., etc., etc. Were the most successful, not the ones who were the quickest on the hill and then sat down and took a beer or whatever they did. And so it's the leaders in the military who were the most successful were the ones who were there and then took the reflection time. Okay, I'm now here. What will I do with the time I have now to make the most
Oh,
use of it?
I'm gonna challenge you on that. If you look at World War II, look at Montgomery and Patton. They were very, very, very different. Patton says a good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan next week. But I get what you're saying, and we have that segues into one of our audience listeners. Let me put it up on the screen. So Felicia, I don't know if it's Felicia or Felicia, says, what if you lean more gut and heart dominant? Are you just not meant to lead? Oh, I thank you so much for listening, Felicia. That's a great question for Christoffel. What do you think, Christoffel?
No,
Is she out of luck or not?
No. Okay. As I said, I'm more gut and heart dominant. So Felicia, right away, I say, of course we are great leaders. But no, you're a great leader. No, you're a great leader. It doesn't matter what your score is. You're a great leader if you're aware of your weak points and know how to compensate that. Because there are examples, if we spoke about from Elon Musk to Donald Trump to Brendan from Virgin to Bill Gates to Steve Jobs and Ali Babi guy. Lost right away his name. From
Christian knows.
Yeah, thank you so much. They all have different kind of styles. It is knowing where you're good at and get a team around you who can compensate. And by the way,
the
good thing of a heart dominance, you create a team. The good of a gut dominance, you go in action. So it also depends, and that is of course, what kind of role are you in? That score is great already in, say, the firefighters, military, action-oriented companies, where there's strategy, long-term decisions not always are part of your job. It's amazing. When long-term decisions are part of your job, you have to have more head brain in there. And so if you're the strategic advisory board, then probably this is not the best score. Then you need probably a little bit more head brain. But if you're in operations, it's an amazing score. If you're middle management, it's an amazing score. If you're in a fast-moving environment, it's an amazing score. So it depends, context, but also about self-awareness.
So I heard a couple things.
is back. Yes.
Felicia, there's a couple things. You're going to be great at building teams, I heard, and you can also surround yourself with people that have some of those strengths that maybe you don't have, and rely on them. And of course, you can develop those brain muscles, as Christoffel said. So thank you so much for listening. I do have a question before we get to the lightning round. You have an assessment, and I want, if you want to make that available to our listeners, we can put that in the show notes. That would be amazing, or just the way that they can find out about it or access it from your website. I use a behavioral assessment, Christoffel. I don't know if you use one besides the one you've created. And one of the things that I love about this assessment, it's used around the world. It's called the ProScan. It measures, in addition to behavioral tendencies, it measures logic. And logic has different styles. You've been describing them. And so we have what's called a fact style or an intuition style. And the intuition style is exactly what you're talking about. It's gut oriented. It's very fast acting. I mean, people can make decisions very, very quickly. But what I find is interesting, you could have an intuition style logic, but you could be what we call highly conformity, which is kind of that brain muscle, right? And what I find is people will make a decision quickly, but then they'll second guess themselves. And so these are dynamics that they have to fight within themselves. But I find it's fairly accurate. I also find that the fact people can learn how to trust their intuition almost using the scientific method, right? What does my gut tell me? Now test it. Can you develop that intuition?
Yes, you can develop that intuition. As we said, you can train it, but it means also you have to. All those signals come in. And what I said, the nerve is setting 90% of the communication up. We unlearned to listen to it. If you look at socialization, the old dogma: big boys don't cry. So what you learn, don't listen to your heart. Girls, no, they don't bruise their knees. So they learn not to listen to the gut brain. And so we are educated also to listen more or less to it. But as in our adult phase, we can retrain ourselves and start listening to it. So we can retrain ourselves. Now, about the test, it's free. If you go to 3 Brains Intelligence, that's the word, you find there the test and they're for free. Why do I do them for free? It's a short test. Because I don't like that people say, I am a gut brain, I am a heart brain. No, I have a dominance in my system 1 thinking in this. Because your system 2 thinking, as Daniel Kahneman already wrote in his beautiful book, you can train your critical thinking and your other kind of brain thinking when you take time for it. So I don't like to map people they are. No, this is a preference you have. Based on the preference, you can start training yourself. What should be my system 2? And for me, as they say in neuro-linguistic programming, the map is not a territory. A test is never a personality, because it's also a self-reflection what you do.
Of course.
And most people are really horrible in accessing themselves. They think I should do this, so this is what I score. That is not what they do always. Because if you ask anybody in the world, are you dishonest? How many people would say I'm dishonest? Almost 0. But look around you, we find them everywhere.
Yeah, no, 90% of us overestimate our impact and underestimate our negative impact. So,
absolutely. So also with that, I don't like the test becomes the truth. It becomes an indicator to start a talk or a coaching or a development of people. And so that's why they're also for free. So I don't put, say,
there is a huge delay today, Christian, a huge delay, because I've been pressing the button. Nothing's happening. And so I put it at the right point, and then Christoffel didn't see it coming, so he kept going. I promise you I've been pressing it sooner. But listen, I have a comment I'm going to add up from Felicia. She wants to thank you, Christoffel, for your insight. She works in corporate HR, TA, and so thank you so much for listening. We love it when our listeners chime in and ask questions. Okay, are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Head, heart, or gut? Which do leaders neglect the most?
Heart.
One word that defines aligned leadership.
I would say 3 Brains Intelligence.
Burnout is caused more by pressure or misalignment?
Misalignment of the heart, not listening to it, or listening too much to it, actually.
It makes sense. The most powerful decision-making tool is
The gut.
strategy or intuition, which wins long term?
That's an interesting question, because short term the intuition will win and wipe out the long term. So if they are not allowed to kill each other, strategy wins. If they're allowed to kill each other, intuition wins.
I love that answer. Daily habit that strengthens alignment.
I would say, I call it three brains meditation. It means really connect with your head, heart, and gut in a breathing exercise, and really bring your attention, your awareness, your love to all your three wisdom centers.
Interesting. Most misunderstood emotion in leadership.
Empathy.
Yes. One leadership myth you'd eliminate tomorrow.
Toxic leadership.
High performance starts with?
Passion.
Finish this sentence. Great teamwork happens when?
We listen to this podcast.
Awesome. All right, Christian, thank you.
What was the good answer?
The great answer. I can't hear you, Christian.
I muted myself because my phone was ringing in the background and I forgot to unmute. I said this is a great way to wrap it up on a high note here. So Christoffel, if people want to connect with you, they want to learn more about what you do or how you can potentially help them, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
As I said, it's about Three Brains Intelligence. The website is called Three Brains Intelligence. The tests are there. I am there. So Google Three Brains Intelligence. You will find me. The same on LinkedIn. And I always say to people, if you did my test and you connect with me, I give you a free talk with me. Because my passion is, and that's really my passion, if I could get one thing out of the world, is toxic leadership.
Yeah.
And actually, not only in companies, but everywhere. So if somebody's interested for learning about this, it means they're that little drop in the ocean to remove toxic leadership. So I give my passion and energy for that. I give back because I know on that moment, my kids, my grandkids, your grandkids will live in a world that is better than we found.
That's well said. And I have that same aspiration. I appreciate you sharing that. And Spencer, you've been helping people and organizations build high-performing teams for decades around the world. If people are interested in learning more about how you can help them, how do they connect with you?
Just message me on LinkedIn. Say hello. We'll schedule a conversation. And Christoffel, now you know why I love Christian so much. Isn't he great?
Oh yes, he's made. Well, no, when you look at your two profiles, it's beautiful. You're just like me. You're spontaneous, Spencer, and blurbs out and goes for. And you see then Christian thinking, absorbing,
deadly silent,
somewhere in the right order, and it comes with a question that is so sharp. You think, oh, so beautiful.
All the time. And so it's one of the things I love about this show is we complement each other. He's the brains, I'm the heart. So anyway, so glad to have you with us, Christian. And how can people get a hold of you?
LinkedIn, that's easy. You just find me on there. Happy to connect with folks there. Spencer, thank you for the kind words, and right back at you. I've been admiring you for decades. Literally, it's been decades. I mean, more than 20 years. And
we're going to go have lunch today again, right?
Yeah, we're going to go have lunch at our favorite Mexican restaurant, Red Iguana. And look forward to seeing you.
That sounds great.
In Qatar. And again, Christoffel, thank you so much for joining us. Listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us as well. We appreciate your questions. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll catch you again soon.